Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this January 25th, 2023 council meeting to order. I'd like everybody to stand if we could for a moment of silence. And then a pledge of allegiance led by Councilmember Dodd. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mayor Jones is excused tonight. Vice Mayor Nunn.
Here.
Councilmember Dixon.
Here.
Oh, she's on Zoom? Okay, awesome. Councilmember Dodd.
Here.
Councilmember McPartland.
Here.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, we're going to recess the city council meeting and convene the draft annexation agreement workshop. Before we do that, though, I'd like to run over a couple rules of the meeting tonight. If it's okay with the council, would anybody want to consider a 3-minute time limit, or do you think we're good with 5?
I think we can stay with 5.
Yeah, 5.
Okay, I'm good with 5 as well. I just want to remind everybody, as we run through this annexation agreement, that you can come up one time. We're going to run through the annexation agreement I just hate when your mind leaves you. I apologize. So you got all your notes. All right. We're going to run through the annexation agreement article by article. What we're going to allow is everybody to come up in that article to discuss that item in the article. There will be no discussion about other articles if this is okay with the council after that article discussion. At the end, if we feel time is good and maybe there's a need, maybe we can have a more open discussion if that's good with the council. Other words, we want you to keep the discussion to the article that we're talking about so that we can move forward in an orderly manner. We would ask that if you are going to come up to speak, if you would form a line. You don't have to form it all the way to the back. You know, come like half, 2/3 of the way up and form a line if you're going to talk. If you are in a group and you have a similar message, it would be wonderful if you could delegate one person as the spokesperson for the group, not required, but we don't really want to hear the same thing repeated over and over and over again if you have that plan. So if that sounds good, unless council has anything else they want to add.
Let me get one clarification. Does that mean that an individual can come up under each article and speak?
That would be my suggestion,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That could get long. And then but I mean, you got to keep them on track that they stick to that article.
They have to
because
stick
once
to
they
that article.
deviate
Yes.
or talk about the entire thing, then that's
Correct.
Right, right.
I do want to say that this is a discussion about our annexation agreement between the city and the applicant. We are not deciding whether to annex. We've already made that decision. We're now trying to find the best way to come up with an agreement to do that. We're not going to debate the items or the agreement. What we are going to do is listen to your input, and the staff is going to take notes for that, the notes and ideas of what you have, and then we'll keep moving forward. Okay, so...
excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Maybe I'd like to go to 3 minutes and then extend their time if they're making a point, because they get the opportunity to come up here 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30.
They do.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that, because just with a vote of council, we can extend their time if it's appropriate to do that.
Right.
Kelly, how's your, Ms. Dixon, how's your feeling on that?
That sounds really good.
Okay, so if it's okay with council, do we need to vote to do this, to change the rules to make input
Rule
time?
5, so we probably do, don't we?
Yes, by majority.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we set a time frame for debate on each article from the public at 3 minutes.
Second.
Second.
There you go.
We can do that, Matt.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All opposed? All right, that motion carries. So we'll keep the input to 3 minutes, and then if you have more to offer and you're not getting it, just make a request to extend. We'd like not to be lectured to, but to have great discussion tonight. All right. So first thing we're going to move is to Article 1. We're going to skip that article because there doesn't seem to be a point to go over definitions. I think everybody can read definitions and it means what it means. So let's get to the important one, which is Article 2, the annexation itself. Does anybody have any discussion items, input, ideas they would like to come up forward and talk to relating to Article 2, the annexation itself, the petition to annex? Okay. So that covers the entire Article 2. If there's nothing in there, then, all right, I will move. Is there anything council wishes to speak to about Article 2? No? Okay. Do we have anybody on Zoom for Article 2 with their hand raised?
Nobody's raised their hand.
All right, thank you very much. All right, then we will move to Article 3, the development of the property. Obviously, this is the meat of the agreement, so I'm expecting there be a decent amount of input here. So if anybody has a discussion they'd like to have related to the development of the Graves Brothers property.
Grace Reed, Sebastian. I did have one little snippet for Article 1, but that's okay. I can move on. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for having this public workshop. It was well needed, and there have been a lot of people asking for it, so I'm glad that you did. It's very detailed in scope, hits on all the concerns, and I'm really proud of what the city and the city staff and anybody else who put together the agreement has done. It's very well written. Concerning to Article 3, most of my comments are around a Facebook post that I saw last night from, I believe it was the Audubon Society put it out. And in that was how everyone should come tonight and be outraged about the way this agreement was written. So I looked at their Facebook post and I said, well, wait a minute, I think I've read all of this stuff in this agreement. So there's probably people here who were not able to attend the meeting. There's people on Zoom, people on Facebook, people on YouTube, people watching TV who can't comment and probably have not had a chance to read the agreement either. So I just wanted to go through a couple of points that were in that Facebook post and let people know where they can find those items in this agreement, if that's going to be fine. One of the things, it said that the size of the PUD shrunk from the minimum 500 acres to the minimum of 400 acres, which is true, it did say that, but I think that that's just something that's a non-issue, because whether it's 400 acres, 450 acres, or 500 acres, the city staff, planning and zoning, or the city council is more than welcome to ask for more acreage because it's a minimum. The post also stated that there is no protection provided for a reasonable buffer. However, on page 11, page 14, and page 15 of the agreement, it calls out items about buffers, landscapes, and those types of things. And so those are something we're going to see in site plans, but not necessarily in just the annexation agreement. It says that they're completely removed a firm 10% affordable housing. And said merely that the developers were encouraged to speak with nonprofits about affordable housing. And on page 14, it does say that. However, on page 10, it goes into speak about anywhere from 5% to 10% minimums of affordable housing. So it does still call out that amount. They didn't completely remove that wording. It said there were no connected green infrastructure, but on page 10 and 11, it calls out things about connecting greenways, trailways, and what does that mean?
That's your 3 minutes?
Oh, 3 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
30 seconds?
Yes, sir.
It's on now.
Yeah, there you go.
If it's a problem, I'd like to give her another 30 seconds.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Is that okay with you? Okay. All right. It calls out the things about the connecting greenways, stormwater, connected stormwater, and all those. So it is referencing connected infrastructures. So again, they've said that it's not in there, and it is. And the very last thing I had was that was going to bring in 15 to 18,000 new people. I don't know where that math came from unless they're using the entire 2,000 acres to put a house on. So I just encourage people on Facebook, TV, and any other listening object that they can do, please go out to the city website, read this agreement, and form your own opinions, because there's things in there that some people have said are not there, and they are very clearly there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yes,
If I
sir.
can, if the citizen will want to bring to our attention that issue of Article 1, feel free after the meeting to bring it to our attention, that
Okay.
issue she had.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, sir.
Hi there, I'm Dan Lamson. I'm the Executive Director of the IRNA. Thank you for having this workshop. I wanted to just touch a little bit on affordable housing. And it does, on the page 10, as that lady said, mention that at least 5% or up to 10% of the dwelling units can be used as affordable housing. And I would like to see that. I think it said 10% earlier in the previous draft, and I think that having more affordable housing is something that Sebastian and the county really needs, and encouraging that when there's going to be all this growth, especially when you can do things like inclusionary housing, when there's not just a whole neighborhood of low-income housing, but you have a couple of houses in each subdivision as an inclusionary housing, meaning that there's some that might not have the granite countertops or the fancy appliances, but it would be more affordable for somebody to purchase, because we really do have a big lack of affordable housing in this county. You guys have mentioned it in the past. The county talks about it a lot. There's a big task force that they're working on trying to figure out how to do it. But if you don't force affordable housing to happen, like if you don't require it, then it probably won't, because you don't make as much money. And I'm not going to begrudge developers for not making as much money as they can on their projects. But that's why the city is in the place right now where they can actually require it. And I think that would be a great way to strengthen the agreement a little bit, and just to raise those numbers up so we can take care of people that, with all these new people coming, someone's going to have to work at Publix and need a place to say, could a police officer, after 3 or 4 years of service in the Sebastian, afford a house in the new developments? We need affordable housing and workforce housing, and this would be a great place for it, because there's going to be some growth there and development. And so I would really encourage you to keep that in mind as you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, George Glenn, attorney for Pelican Island Audubon Society. I appreciate your time. I do want to, the key points I want to get out regarding the development plan is that, not to go back to Article 1, but I do think it's important definitions. Open space has been changed. We think that one of the things we complimented was how open space was defined before. You've changed how open space is defined, and we think that's problematic. One of the things that we complimented the city on the previous draft was the requirement of connected green infrastructure. That's been clearly replaced with encouraged. And I would encourage anyone who's watching this that use your common sense. When you require something, it's fundamentally different than when you encourage something. The connected green infrastructure was important because you're including stormwater retention areas as your open space. It's easy to get to 50% when you're including that. It has more meaningful impact as far as qualities to the environment when it's part of a connected green infrastructure. And so we thought that was a very good item that was in the previous draft of the agreement, which has effectively been removed. Anytime you say something should be encouraged does not mean anything. Shrinking the PUD from 500 to 400 we think was a wrong step. We appreciated having the minimum 500 acre size. So open space, we'd like to see that tightened up back to where it was before. We'd like to see connected green infrastructure put back in. It was in there before. We think that was a good move. We want to see the PUD size increase back to 500 acres. The affordable housing went from 10% to 5 to 10%. And again, if you give a range, they're going to be free to choose the lower end. And if they bring you a plan on a rezoning, and it meets the lower end, I don't see how you can deny a rezoning. That's why we keep on saying you got to get this right at the land use. This is legislative. When you get to the zoning, it's quasi-judicial. It's check the boxes. If they meet the requirements, it's very difficult to deny it. This is the greatest time you will have to get it right. I don't believe you're going to have a chance to get it right in the future. The final thing that we really pushed, and I hope you all read our letters because we included a map, we strongly believe that there should be a reasonable size buffer for the slough of the St. Sebastian, South Prong of the St. Sebastian River. This is over 2,000 acres. When you include their previous annexation, we're talking almost 2,100 acres. We count up to 11,000 potential units that this plan could allow, which would create a population that would exceed 25,000. So I think what we suggested for population was actually low. And we noticed that there wasn't any, this time around as compared to last time, there was no traffic counts, there was no, some of that information as far as the impacts that would occur from the population that build out is missing. I think if you were to tell your residents, if 35,000 trips, if I'm remembering correctly, was associated with the 1,100 acre annexation and land use change, what do you think 2,000 acres and the corresponding land use is going to produce? And the final thing, again, going back to, we produced a map that shows a reasonable buffer. It's about 115 acres. It surrounds the slough of the St. Sebastian River at the 2,000 acres, 2,100 acres. This is very reasonable to protect the slough. It would make a wonderful feature for Sebastian residents, for the new residents of this development. And those are sort of the key highlights that we really believe the city council really needs to put back in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this is not a development agreement, this is an annexation agreement. So therefore, we're not focusing, thank you. I'm just making a general statement for the room.
It's treated as a development agreement, though.
It's not, but thank you. So this is an annexation agreement, it's not a development agreement. A development agreement will come once there's actually a plan for the property. Secondly, the numbers that are set forth in this agreement are based on our comprehensive plan and our land use and all of that. So it's not numbers that we pulled out of the air. We're actually using the code, the land use, the comprehensive plan to decide where these numbers come from. And if you do the numbers on the percentages, which are clearly an annexation agreement of low use, mid use, and very low use, along with commercial use, there's no way you can get 11,000 houses on that property. I'll just make it simple as that. That's an unrealistic, unreal, bogus number, and I apologize. Yes, sir.
Can I interject?
Yes, sir.
Before we go
ahead,
forward again?
Mr. Dodd.
Okay. Actually, if we use the information in the document and we compute the number of houses that can be put on this property at the maximums, we have to understand that residential space can be a maximum of 80% of the land, and the densities that go in there. That does come out to about 10,771 units that can be placed on the property. So I just want to make sure we're not saying something that is out of line with that, because anybody who wants to sit down with a calculator and do the math, they can come up with that number. However, that's not what's going to be there. We have to think about that process. So we approved an annexation for Spirit of Sebastian at almost 5 units per acre, and he's building 1.9, I think. So I'm not overly concerned. This agreement is, and I tend to agree with the attorney who was up. It does do some development parameters. It is in fact a layout for the conditions that are being placed on the entire 2,000 acres of property. As that 2,000 acres of property is developed in partials, and that's just the words that are used through this document, the 2,000 acres is going to be made up of partials, have a minimum size of 400 acres. And I think that minimum size number of 400 acres is just fine. It could be any number. It could be 100 acres, it could be 500 acres, it could be 1,000 acres. It doesn't really matter, because it's going to depend on the marketplace and on the developer who wants to come in and buy a piece of that property. We're just trying to put a minimum limit on what we feel like we want to have some control over through the PUD process. Through the PUD process, all of these other things are going to be dealt with. They're going to be dealt with through the PUD process. This is unusual in that we don't have a master plan. And we're not going to have a master plan. I can't imagine any developer coming in here and wanting to buy 2,000 acres and master plan a 2,000 acre mixed-use community in Indian River County. I mean, I just can't see it happening. If it would have happened, it would be going on right now on the Cogden property in Fellsmere, okay, if it was possible to do that. And that's not what's happening there. So I just don't see it happening. So it's gonna be broken up, it's gonna be sold. What we're saying here, and as you look at it and as you discuss it, what we're saying here is that for the 2,000 acres, these are your limits. We're not saying that in one PUD, they may not have higher density than they do in another PUD. But they have to transfer density from one PUD to the other to do that. And also, when you get into things like affordable housing requires smaller lots, smaller houses, less features, that's density. That's exactly what it is. So if we want affordable housing on this property, we cannot in any way restrict density to a number that I keep hearing people say they want it to be, or we're never going to get affordable housing on it.
Never.
Now, the 5 to 10%, I'm not exactly 100% sure why it went from 10 to 5 to 10%. That's a conversation that the city staff could have with the owner of the property. But affordable housing is going to be a development issue. Somebody has to be willing to build it in order for it to get done. And that's the problem, is finding someone willing to build it for it to be done. And we've all been unsuccessful at doing that. I mean, the affordable housing project that's being built in the county right now is a beautiful attempt at doing that. But those houses aren't going to be affordable to someone making $35,000 a year, or $40,000 a year, or maybe even $50,000 a year. And the county has gone as far out on the limb as they can go to make that happen. They've been as generous as, I mean, they've given away more stuff than I can think about to try to make that happen. So it's a very difficult thing to deal with for the affordable housing issue. So, but I just want to make sure everybody understands that if you do the math on this document, it does come out to 10,771 units. That's what it comes out to. And that is a density at the simplest calculation, that's a density of about 5.26 units per acre. If you want to get more complicated, it could get a little bit different than that. It will be different than that. So I just want to make everybody understand that we're not, there's nobody in the city that's not looking at that reality and what the possibilities are, but there's also very few people in the city that believe that that's what's going to happen. Okay. So.
Okay, well, you've answered all my questions, so. Actually, I'm here to talk about the future development under this article. And over the last, Tim Glover, President of Friends of St. Sebastian River, over the last probably 8 months, we've participated with the other organizations, sending several letters talking about issues that we're concerned about and so forth. But as Mr. Glenn pointed out, this is a legislative process, and therefore you have extra leeway in being able to negotiate and get certain assurances. Some of those, that's mostly what we've been addressing in our letters. Without that, it essentially leaves you to the provisions of the development regulations in the city of Sebastian, which are minimum standards, which, in my opinion, kind of equates to a grade of D on a report card. And I don't think we should be accepting of that. So I think it would be helpful to go beyond those minimum standards. And I think that this is the only time that you're possibly going to see that is because it's a legislative process. So some of those things that have already been pointed out, but again, our primary concern would be protecting the St. Sebastian River, the south prong of the St. Sebastian River, and we proposed a area for conservation that we think is very important to be included in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here because I am the owner of a new food truck placed in Sebastian Boulevard, and the legislation let me be only there in the one place for 40.
I'm sorry, ma'am. This isn't public input right now. We'll get to public input here in a little while. Right now, this is related specifically to the annexation agreement.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to have a seat for a couple minutes, I'll let you know once we start public input.
I'm so sorry.
No problem. No problem. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor, Mr. Dodd, Mr. McPartland, and the lady in the sky, wherever she is.
Thank you.
Good. My name is Graham Cox. I'm at 1213 George Street in Sebastian. I'm on the board of the Pelican Island Audubon Society. And there are other representatives here tonight of the society that are going to talk to you on things. I'd like to start off with one thank you, and that is to Mr. Bass. 2 weeks ago, he sat down with Tim and myself, and we talked about the project, or at least the annexation agreement. And he gave us an education on water, moving water on and around these big pieces of land. I distributed, before we started, a copy of my remarks. I'm not going to read them all to you because you can read better than I can. My glasses are not the best. The two things I want to say is, or three things. One is we have urged you for the last 2 years to hire somebody who's got experience dealing with a project of this size. And that's not happened. I think it's a real shame. It's an opportunity to bring in some real creative ideas from somewhere else. After a while, when we say we're a perfect little town, you're not going to find the people with the intelligence and the spread of knowledge that they should have. My response to a lot of the comments that have been raised is we need data. And you've been handed a blank sheet of paper, and we're being asked to comment on something that has no data in it. And we need to get down to the bottom of that. We've got to have data no matter what you do with it. In my comments on page 4, I quote from the first draft of the plan. The annexation will yield substantial benefits to the owner, the city, and the real property in the form of a planned mixed-use development, an increased tax base of the city, conservation of natural habitats, open space, and increased employment opportunities. Written in the margin of that document, I'm presuming by the attorney who drafted it, is a comment that says, can these be documented? In the second draft, it's not documented. I want you to realize that you are building a city next to a city, and we should consider the impact that it's going to have on all of our resources. It might be good, it might be bad, but we've got to realize that we are building a whole new city in a relatively short span of time, 10, 20 years. And it's going to totally change the character of Sebastian and the county. I spoke the other night with a gentleman who now lives in Hobart Landing. One last second. Hobart Landing is just south of Sebastian. He moved from Houston with a population of 2.6 million people. When he got there, it was 400,000. So it went from 400,000 to 2.6. He said the traffic is horrendous. He could never go back. But he came to Sebastian because it was a peaceful, old town kind of place. And if people want that to be maintained, then we've got to think about how this is going to impact everybody. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kelly Jackson. I'm 5th generation here in Indian River County. My mom's family started here in the late 1800s on what is now Johns Island. We have family buried there. I am very, very concerned with the fact that food is not in our economic development plans, and you guys are just thinking nothing of taking this land. How are we going to grow our food? So at the land use meeting for the county, I spoke after Mr. Grice, which apparently used to be on that land use board at some point, and he had suggested that we consider doing 1 to 2 acre parcels, which is what we're developing our farm on right now, a 2 acre parcel. It's very difficult to find ag-zoned land for small operations, and small farms are who provide food for these communities. So I'm very concerned that this is not being looked at. I agree with the gentleman that spoke before me that we need to get people outside of here. Our special projects manager is out of Ohio. I've mentioned conscious communities, eco-villages. When you're talking about affordable housing, I was raised on the corner of 69th Street and 66th Avenue on the west side. Under a 10-acre parcel, we coexisted as a family. We had my grandparents, which had 3 children, one of which was my father, and we all coexisted on the same land. It was a wonderful way to raise, and we have so many families in this community that are generational deep, such as mine. So this affordable housing and all these things that they're talking about, I'm very, very concerned that food is not being looked at. We're not dependent on the food banks. So I would like for that to be considered in all of this.
Thank you. You know, I'll make a point about affordable housing. I serve on the Affordable Housing Committee, and what Councilmember Dodd was talking about with the county, they bought the old Gifford Groves community, and they're literally giving the property to the people that buy the houses. When the first quote came in, I'm trying to remember if it was like $350,000 a home. So we denied the quote. As the committee, we sent it back. The county commission went back out and came back, and the Habitat for Humanity won the bid. But those houses are still going to range from $250 to $275, and in today's day, I don't know if that's affordable even anymore. And there you go with those. You get free property. You're just paying for the house. They're giving as many fees as they can possibly give. Affordable housing is a tough concept. It's definitely needed. No argument there whatsoever. But it's such, in today's money climate, it's a tough one. Anybody else? Oh, there we go. I would ask if there's anybody else that is going to talk on Article 3, if they could stand up and be ready to move forward. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor and council people. I appreciate you. I'm Richard Baker, and I live on the Sebastian River for over 22 years. I paddled the river 20 years before that. So I've seen the degradation of the river for over 40 years. The Sebastian River is how the city of Sebastian got its name. Both river and the lagoon were clear 40 years ago. You could see the grasses, the fish, and the manatees. I could watch them mate and appear to have fun. Now I see dead manatees in front of my house, which I report to the FWC, who come to pick them up. Thousands of manatees are starving and dying. I also see the manatees lifting up in the bank to try to get the vegetation on the land above the water to keep them from starving to death. With all the development, the pollution, Sebastian's current policies and ordinances for current residents are not working. Some are not even being enforced. Our river is dying. Can we even think of how 15 to 18,000 more people when we cannot even handle 26,000 in an acceptable environmental way? There's no way of adding this level of intensity to the property without negatively impacting natural resources and public facilities. Before any new annexation and population growth, we need to have stricter environmental policies and ordinances that will bring back the river and the lagoon. Sebastian needs stronger landscape and tree ordinances, require native plantings and reduced turf grass, more and better stormwater retention facilities to clean water from our roads, developments, and provide wildlife habitat. Most stormwater ponds are in bad shape. Turf grass is right up to the shore. Policies and methods dealing with their poop, septic tanks, and sewers.
I'm just going to remind you, we're discussing Article 3. We're not discussing the rest of Sebastian, and I understand those are concerns, but those are really more public comment concerns. They're not related to...
So is it going to be a public comment then?
Yes, sir. There'll be a public... We have a regular council meeting after this tonight.
Oh, you're not dealing with the annexation, though?
Not
I thought
tonight.
there was going to be an
February
overall
8th.
chance.
Yes, sir. So this is relating specifically to Article 3.
But I suggest that we have more experts coming in to advise on these policies. I have written to you suggesting that Timothy Sellen, who has experience working with master plan community developers, home builders, landscape architects, and regulators to shift from conventional landscapes to sustainable landscapes. We want to work together with you to help improve our current living here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Donna Halloran, and I am a resident of Sebastian. And I'm also the person that posted on Facebook last night. Thank you very much. And I would like to just read that very quickly. But join us at the Sebastian City Hall, address 6 o'clock, for the workshop on the proposed Graves Brothers annexation, come and speak out against the agreement in its present form. The city is relying on a woefully inadequate annexation agreement to kick the tough development issues down the road when it will be too late to fix them. Even if you don't live in Sebastian or the surrounding area, you may not be immediately impacted, but you will be affected because it changes the total overall environmental footprint along the 510 corridor. We're talking about thousands of homes on agricultural land with a potential increase in population of 15 to 18,000 people. This 2,000-acre annexation and land use change encompasses the headwaters of the south slough of the St. Sebastian River, for which no protection is provided for, despite repeated requests to provide a reasonable buffer. The updated annexation is terrible. In the current agreement, differing substantially from the previous one in November, the city took out much of the language that we collectively appreciated as a starting point, such as the minimum PUD, I know we discussed that, and the definition of what constitutes open space, and the requirement of connected green infrastructure. Connected is a very important thing. People should be upset about this. The city's recent mantra of needing this development for affordable housing has gone out the window, as the previous draft requires a firm 10% of housing units being made as affordable. Now it's 5 to 10%. Come learn more at the meeting, 6 o'clock. So I did encourage people to come. I would like them to speak out, and if, doesn't matter which side, but I don't feel that there was a lot of information given out there. I know a lot of people had a hard time finding the annexation agreement on the website as well. Thank you very much for listening.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, council members. My name is Dylan Reingold, County Attorney, Indian River County. Please understand, from our perspective, we're just trying to know how this is going to impact us and our ability to provide services. We provide fire rescue, we provide county roads, we provide water and sewer utilities. Those are all going to be an aspect of what eventually is developed on this property. What I heard from Councilmember Dodd was this could be up to 10,770 homes, roughly 2 persons per home. You're talking about 21,000 people. That to us is about 3 million gallons of water per day on our utility. I think the comments that we provided to the city in December, basically, I just want to reiterate the key point for us is we would need to be able to provide that for this development or this property to be served. And so what we're looking for is simply the concessions from the developer or the property owner to be able to help us provide the water and sewer services that would serve this property. Those are really our interests and our key issues for this, and we would hope that you guys would consider that as you move forward in this consideration. So thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for having us today. This is Phil Metzen. I'm the Community Development Director of Indian River County. First of all, this is a very tough business planning. You know, you have a different format workshop. You didn't hear us, you didn't do enough, you didn't listen. You have this format, maybe not enough. Also, information came too late. You know, you kind of can't win with planning to some extent. I want to say it's a good forum. I feel very welcome here. Thank you for having us. Thank you for recording the comments. I want to compliment the staff members individually. I mean, you all work with the county very, very well in a lot of working models, the MPO. We've done magnificent things together, from the rail trail overpass to new interchanges that take the pressure off the other interchanges and so forth. You've all individually worked on that. You've all individually worked with TDLCB, affordable housing. We talked about some of the challenges of getting affordable housing. We're trying very hard at the county. We just closed yesterday on 2 houses in Sebastian, emergency SHIP loan repairs. So I'll plug that a little. Residents of Sebastian can come to the county SHIP program to get assistance. As for the annexation agreement, talk a little bit about it. Big ain't necessarily bad. I think the 400-acre, 500-acre, I think it's good to work with chunks of that size if that's what's practical. You don't get really large-scale public benefit, sense of place type development unless you have something of a large scale. Like the Nabacoa type development. I'm not calling for that here, but sometimes you need some scale in order to be able to get some of the amenities that our visioning program told us we might want. Mountain bike parks, places for kids to congregate, give them an alternative to what they're doing. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I will reemphasize a couple of things that George Glenn said. This is probably your best opportunity to get it right and to move forward properly and correctly. I have a lot of faith in staff. I have a lot of faith in council. And take into consideration grid interconnectivity, I think it's a good thing. It spreads the load of traffic. I've always been, beating that drum for a long time on the MPO. Buffering, another wonderful thing. And good luck to you. And we're here as a resource and a partner to help whatever we can and, be responsible stewards. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anybody on Zoom that wishes to speak on Article 3?
Not at this time.
Okay. Well, if nobody else is coming forward, I'm going to go ahead and close Article 3 and move to, well, let me ask a question. Council?
I just had a question.
Yes, sir.
Lisa, can you tell me where the connected, the green infrastructure, connected green infrastructure section is? I am unable to find that. There was a question that I heard about that, and quite frankly, it didn't trigger in my mind as many times I've read this stupid thing, so.
Not as many times as I have, sir, but God bless you.
Mr. City Manager?
Article K.
Yeah.
Article K.
Well, it's not Article K, it's in the.
Section. Okay, it's section K of the.
Comprehensive Plan text
comprehensive
amendments,
plan
yes,
thing.
sir.
Okay.
It is mentioned in Article K. I mean, number K. It is also part of our definitions.
Okay, so it says in here, just to make sure, I just like to make sure that when I hear the comments, I have some idea what, it says in here that the property shall be master planned, minimum of no less increments of 400 acre parcels, using the PUD zoning district and process, and promote green infrastructure through the comprehensive plan of connected stormwater, greenways, and open spaces that provides for wildlife habitat, stormwater management systems, and so forth. But I don't know where that is, makes that an optional thing. It says it will promote that. I guess my question is, I may have misunderstood what was said. How does that make it different than what it was the first time? I don't think that article's changed, has it?
No, sir. That was already in there. I was trying to look for it before. Actually, it was added since this was reviewed by the City Council back in, was it October?
Yeah.
And this has then been, since then, added in there in order to provide a more stronger language regarding green infrastructure and open space.
Yeah, because the starting with and promote green infrastructure is new language in here from our first reading.
That is correct, sir.
Okay, so we've actually tightened that a little bit, I thought. Now, I don't know, I'll leave it up to the attorneys to tell me whether they think that is ambiguous. But it says, the zoning district process and promote green infrastructure through a comprehensive plan of connected stormwater, greenways, open spaces, so forth. Does that not basically say that they will do that?
That was drafted by us and Mr. Googleman.
Yes.
So I think we're comfortable with that language.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. I know about the density things. I know about please hire consultants, and I drop that back to whether it's a control issue or a trust issue. If it's a trust issue, take a look at Sebastian. I've been here 21 years. I still go to the same restaurants. Some of them are owned by different people, but they're the same restaurants. And I haven't seen this. And our population's doubled. Houston more than doubled, but Sebastian is never going to be a Houston. So I don't have any issue with that side of it, but I just want to make sure that one triggered me as whether it was something that was reasonable or not. But it appears to me that we've got that covered in there. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so don't give me the shred of thinking I'm not a lawyer, but it says to me that it says that. And when we get to the PUD process, we're going to be able to require that they do connectivity in the green infrastructure. That's what it sounds to me. Is that reasonable, Mr. Anaheim?
Yes, and don't forget that this A through M is also part of the flume. Remember, that's what we're adding. You guys will subsequently consider. We're incorporating here as well by reference and for obvious reasons that we've explained to council before. So
okay.
A lot of the new language you see now in red in your flume is language that we've added subsequent to your first meeting.
I mean, I would be interested in hearing why someone thinks that that's not That's not directional to the development, but that's not what we're here for tonight. That's, and I'll question the attorneys later about that if I need to when we get through that, so. But that's, I mean, on my list, that's the only one that I had that I was.
And if I can, Mr. Vice Mayor, we also brought Mr. Googleman here today in case you guys have any questions for him as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Dodd, Councilmember McCartland, you have anything?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Councilmember Dixon, do you have anything you want to add?
No, thank you.
No, you're welcome. All right, so we're going to move to Article 4. Council, do you see a purpose of going through Article 4? I mean, we can open it up if we need to. Okay, Article 4.
Thank you. George Glenn speaking again. So this is the enforcement of the agreement and violation. So I would like, because I think this ties into what you were just talking about, if there comes a dispute with this agreement and it's going to be enforced, where are those disputes going to come from? And so you just read a provision that says, oh, we should promote this. And I understand you're not lawyers, and you're going to listen to your lawyers, but there's a fundamental difference between saying you're going to promote something.
Before you go forward, I want to correct you. It doesn't say we should promote. It says and promote.
Promote, but this is what your old language said.
Okay.
And
well,
you can tell.
Forget the old language. The new language is what we're discussing tonight.
But don't you want to see the difference? What we're saying is how you had it and why it.
I've looked at 15 revisions of this thing. Yeah,
well, then let me just read what you guys sent out originally at some point. A green infrastructure, a comprehensive plan of connected stormwater, greenways, and open space that provides for wildlife habitat, wildlife habitat, stormwater management system, recreational opportunities, and low impact design. And so, and another paragraph, I apologize, I don't have it in here, the language was they shall commit to a connected green infrastructure. Now, here's my concern, and it's up to you guys how you want to handle this. This agreement, whatever you sign, if you sign it, is going to be binding in any future dispute with a future developer. So if your mentality is, and you can check with your lawyer, but if your mentality is, we're going to have all this discretion at the PUD rezoning stage, that if this says, well, they should either encourage or promote or something like that, and we don't like it, we can deny it. I think under your enforcement provisions, you're going to be in trouble because I think a future developer is going to say, this is a rezoning. It is not a land use. This is quasi-judicial. It does not require me to commit to connected green infrastructure. It says it should promote. How do you define promote? Well, that seems pretty vague as opposed to saying it shall be. And so I feel like there's sort of a thought process that we can plan this how we like it at a rezoning stage, and I think you're going to get in trouble under the enforcement provision if you want to start extracting things, which you should, because there are better things you can do with this development plan than what's in here. And so if you simply think we'll just wait till the rezoning and we'll get it right then, it's going to be too late. A developer is going to say, nope, this is a rezoning, it's quasi-judicial. As long as I don't conflict with what's in there, I think you have to approve my development plan. And so I think under the enforcement provision, you're going to get in trouble the more language you use when you say things like promote versus shall do something. And again, you had some good language in there, and I understand you went through a lot of drafts. We are only have one previous draft that was released sometime in late November. It has some good language, and there's a reason why a lot of the language that we appreciated is now out. They obviously, someone said, no, I don't want to have my feet held to the fire on that. I want to have flexibility, and then when you add flexibility, you lose the authority to mandate at the future at a quasi-judicial rezoning stage. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. I do want to clarify one thing. Item K, I'm going to go ahead and read it because I think it's good to be clear. The property shall be master planned on a minimum of no less increments of units of 400-acre parcels as part of an overall planned development project using the PUD zoning district and process, and promote green infrastructure through a comprehensive plan of connected stormwater, greenways, and open space that provides for the wildlife habitat. It doesn't say you can think about promoting green infrastructure. The Article K, or Article 2K starts with the property shall be and. It's very clear, shall be and. If I say you shall clean your room, wash the car, and feed the dog, it doesn't mean you only have to wash the car and don't have to feed the dog and the other two things. Shall covers the entire paragraph. So shall is there, to be clear, completely. We'll leave it to the lawyers to handle if that needs to be clear, but it sounds pretty clear to me, shall is there.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a concern expressed. What we have to do is get a reading from our attorneys as to how they feel about that.
Correct. All right, so anybody else? Yes, sir. Yeah, we're not moving forward. We're just, please stand out. We're good.
I apologize for not mentioning this earlier, but I felt I definitely wanted to put this out there and make sure you heard it from me. I plan to bring just an update to my board on Tuesday next week, just to give them a sense of what happened here today, and then the direction from my board as I move forward going into your February 8th meeting. I just didn't want to get you caught off guard that there was an item on our agenda. It'll be coming out on Friday. It's a very short memo I drafted that just says, I'm giving an update on this and seeking direction. Just want to make sure I was upfront and clear with both your staff and this council.
Thank you. As a public document, we would expect it. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, because I know that I'm the one that made that comment, but I would just want to go back to this for a second. The original document that I very first saw, we've only seen the two, it said required. Under K, it says the property shall be master planned on a minimum of no less than increments or units of 400 acre parcels as part of an overall planned development project using the PUD zoning district and process and promote green infrastructure. It doesn't say it's required. It doesn't say, it says it shall, but it's not talking about shall about the green infrastructure. Otherwise, it would just say, and green infrastructure. So the word promote is there. You need to read that word. That's where it is. Promote does not tell me that it's going to have to happen. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, anybody else that wishes to discuss item 4, enforced delay, default remedies, and termination? I would ask if you are going to speak on Article 4, if you could please, in the middle, if you could gather in a line in the middle to be prepared so we can keep moving forward. Thank you.
I'm not sure if this is on Article 4 because I'm not an attorney, but the one thing that I feel like we're missing the boat on is we are all human beings that were put on this earth to live in harmony with this earth, and I think that is what we are missing the boat on. We are a part of the ecosystem. Human beings are a part of that ecosystem. So all I keep hearing, and it's no discredit to nature, but if the economy, we all know the state of the economy, and food is a huge expense for people right now. And for us to be healthy, we already have all this contamination we're dealing with in our natural environment. We should be able to forage, hunt, fish. So again, we have got to start looking at our land differently. It's called low-impact land development. So we do need other advice outside of what we are hearing here to be better stewards of our land in this community and provide better resources for the humans that are living here.
Vice Mayor, may I say
Yes, sir.
Ma'am,
Yes.
I just want you to know, just so you're kind of happy about this, Spirit of Sebastian, which we basically did the same way with an annexation agreement. The first phase of Spirit of Sebastian is agri-neighborhood. It's going to be built around homes with food growing facilities. They're going to have farmers markets. They're going to do that kind of stuff. That's in Sebastian. And we didn't do much different in an annexation agreement with Spirit of Sebastian than we did here. When it got into the development process, then we got into, that was as a result actually of the county's planning process. We're then discussing things like cluster neighborhoods, agri-neighborhoods, and the developer of Spirit of Sebastian is building an agri-neighborhood. Okay, so.
Not the same.
Yeah, well, we're not talking about building a farm.
And you're not allowing families. I'm not the only family that's generations deep here.
Yeah.
So you're asking these generational families to put their, loved ones in these different facilities to be taken care of. My mom is in a low-income place right now. We should all be able to stay together. We shouldn't have to be separated.
I agree with that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm Richard Baker again. Just to clarify, the current stormwater management system that the city of Sebastian has and what we have in the county is not working. That's why our lagoon and our river is failing drastically. We've got to get our act together on what we're doing today before we're even thinking about the future. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this point, we're going to move on from Article 4 and move to Article 5, encumbrances and releases on real property. Anybody that wishes to speak on that item? Anybody in council? Okay, anybody on Zoom?
Nobody on Zoom.
Thank you. All right, Article 6, miscellaneous provisions. Anybody that wishes to speak on that item? Anybody on council? Anybody on Zoom?
Nobody.
All right, thank you. Okay, so that moves us through the articles of the annexation agreement. I believe the staff has done an excellent job of putting this together. They've followed the comprehensive plan and the land development code to make sure it met all the requirements and the wording that was required according to those legal documents that bind us to development in our city. I do believe that it always seems to be missed that if we don't annex it, that suddenly the Graves brothers are going to decide to put a big farm back there. It used to be an orange grove. Obviously, that's not the direction they're going with the property. They have a plan to develop this property or work to develop this property. If it's not part of Sebastian, it'll be part of something else. I think it's a much better thing for it to be part of our city, to help us grow in a sensible manner, but also benefit from that manner. If we don't control it, we don't benefit from it. We receive no tax money. If it doesn't get done here and goes to the county or goes to Fellsmere, then the county still gets the same benefit. They would just then have control over the development. I think they've done a great job at coming together with this, and I'm excited to move forward. We definitely took some good notes. I took some good notes that I will discuss with staff at another time, and I'm sure the other council members will discuss with staff their notes as well. But nothing groundbreaking. I think the lawyers have done a great job of putting the wording together like it needed to be. Councilmember Dodd, anything? Nope. Nothing? Councilmember Partland?
Look, I've got this little gnat jumping around my head. But you know, having sat up here when the annexation came before, I think this is a much tighter document. And I think we had a lot of public input, and we said, come to the meeting, come to the meeting, come to the meeting. So I think, you know, there's transparency, there's more transparency, and there's most transparency. And I think we have been that. And now is everybody, this document, I remember when this annexation first came back, there was talk we didn't need an agreement. So I think this is a step in the right direction. Some of the wording that people are going back and forth over, if we went to the last one, everybody here was completely happy with what the draft said. And again, these are drafts that were going out along the way, agreements. So I think this is pretty tight. I would like to see the actual number on the maximization, but as Mr. Dodd had mentioned, if you do the percentage-wise, you're basically coming out to about 5.26.
Would you?
And Mr. Reingold was wrong. It's 10,771, not 770. So, I mean, that is a number to work with. That's not going to happen overnight. And like I heard mentioned, that this is a city that will be built on a city. No, Sebastian 1 would be growing by 20%. The other aspect is the homes that are on there will have to have county sewer and water. Have to. And I think that's an important aspect. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Dixon, Councilmember Dixon, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think everything Mr. McPartland just said is kind of where I'm at, so thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. All right. Then I officially close this workshop, and we'll move to the, sorry, ma'am. We will have public input if you want to come up during that.
Comment of Councilman McPartland.
Okay,
Just
go
a
ahead.
quick question. My name is Elin Richards, and I live in an unincorporated part of Indian River County. My question is, the schools that will have to be built, will they be paid for by the county or by Sebastian?
The school systems are paid for by the school district and all county taxpayers,
Right, okay. So
through your county
the
tax bill.
county needs to take that into.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next,
Mr.
do we
Mayor,
have
would
any?
you-
I'm sorry,
You want
sir.
to take a 5-minute break because if people want to leave that were here for this?
Yeah, we're going to take a quick 5-minute recess. We'll reconvene at 7:06, or 7:07.
Can I ask one question? Is there going to be another workshop on the next draft of this? You're going to have another draft, but no workshop on it?
No, sir. We have an annexation agreement meeting on the February 8th.
But nothing beyond that?
No, at that point, it's for the annexation, the second reading, and the,
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to reconvene the city council meeting for January 25th, 2023. Do we have any agenda modifications? Okay, hearing none. Proclamations, awards, and brief announcements. January 28th and 29th, we have the 4th annual Sweet Tea Sip and Stroll at Riverview Park. Saturday from 9:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. February 3rd, we have the Sebastian River Area Chamber of Commerce concert in the park. From 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m., that'll be Tom McLear and Friends, Blues, Rock, and Country. We also have the Sebastian Police Department Citizens Academy, which will be held starting February 23rd to May 11th. If you're interested in that, contact the police department and get you set up. The Four Chaplains Memorial Ceremony at Riverview Park is February 5th at 2 p.m. And the last announcement that I have is we also have a sock drive going on, socks for the homeless, to benefit the homeless. We have a box out here in the lobby. If anybody's interested in donating socks, they always gather so many socks to give to the homeless and help them out. So that will be that. Anybody else have any announcements? All right. Right. Public input. Would anyone like to speak on something? That something would be any item not related to items that are on the agenda. You can come forward now.
Good evening again. Can I speak right now? It's my turn right now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So,
we need your name
my
and where
name
you're
is
from.
Okay. My name is Legni Sanchez. I am the owner of a Cuban food truck placed in 512 in Sebastian Boulevard. So the reason that I am here is because the legislation let me be only in one spot for no more than the 48 hours. So we only want to serve the community and then support our family working hard, and then because it's not many places in the Sebastian city that you can go and eat so fast and really good food. So my concern is you can extend at least 4 days a week to be stand in one place. It's only what I want to say.
Okay. I know that's in the code that they can only be for 48 hours in one location. Is that correct, Mr. City Manager?
So this one we just adopted, I believe it was in 2020, when the new statute came out. They can only be in one location for 2 days in any given week, calendar week. It's there specifically to protect our brick and mortar buildings and provide, they don't have, in this food truck, she's not hooked up to sanitary sewer, so it's just one of the, she's got to go to, that truck has to leave and go to a commissary by law. So it can't be parked there just because of that aspect. But we were very judicious in how we wrote our code to help protect our brick and mortar, not have food trucks parked in every vacant business or business parking lot.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak during public input? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Sharon Herman, Sebastian. I just really wanted to commend the art show. If everyone got a chance to get down there this weekend, it was really incredible. We've got some amazing, talented people in this area. I was thrilled to see that they had set it up on the concrete, because with the Clam Festival, I was real disappointed that they didn't have the ADA accessible, the wheelchair, the walker accessibility. And with everything on the concrete like that, Mom and I were able to walk the entire show, and she thoroughly enjoyed it. I just had two small negatives that maybe as these things are making more modifications, there were plenty of dog signs up. There were also plenty of dogs that were not service animals, and just because you put a sweatshirt on them doesn't make them a service animal. And the other thing is the food vendors and the food trucks and the band was still up on the grass. So we weren't able to really enjoy that. But the show overall was really outstanding. And I really appreciate all the effort that they did.
Thank you. Anybody else on public input? We have anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right, well, I'm going to close public input and move to the consent agenda.
I move
Council,
approval.
pleasure.
I move
Okay.
approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Ms. City Clerk, thank you.
Vice Mayor Nunn,
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd,
Yes.
and Councilmember McPartlin.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. Committee reports and appointments. Are there any county or regional reports that anybody has they want to talk about? Okay. Item A, Auditor Selection Committee. City Manager?
Yeah, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council, we are going out to bid for our new auditor for the city. Not because the one that we've had that isn't doing a great job. Ken gets the award every year for doing an excellent full comprehensive budget, but in the interest of fairness, we need to put this back out to bid, and it requires that you have two appointees. The council can appoint two appointees, which we have asked Larry Napier, who serves on the budget committee, and Bruce Hoffman, who serves on the budget committee, has all agreed to do that, or anyone else the council would like to submit for nominations for that. But then it also has to have one council member as a representative to serve on that selection board. So we will need a volunteer from council as well.
Okay. I'm good with both of those gentlemen as far as the staff selection, unless anybody else has an issue. They're both very involved.
And I think Mayor Jones would be great as the council representative.
I think that would be a good idea. I'd like to nominate Mayor Jones as the council representative and confirm the selection
I'd like to
of
third
Larry
that.
Napier and Bruce Hoffman.
Right.
Yeah.
Do I have a second on that?
You did. You had a second and a third. Okay. So, is there any other nominations? If not, Councilmember Dixon, you have any other nominations?
No, I do not.
Okay. All right. Well, then, if we'd like to, all in favor?
Aye.
All okay.
Aye.
All opposed? Awesome. All right. So, Mayor Jones is our official representative on that committee.
And be careful, he may make his crayons.
As long as they're not red.
All right, we have no public hearings. Unfinished business. City Manager.
Yeah, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council, this was brought back to you. When we had brought this back before, it was asked that we finish union negotiations. In the past, the council has provided the same wage increases for the managerial employees as the general employees. We're still in negotiations with general employees, but we did complete the negotiations with the police union. And what we approved with them was the institution of the wage and comprehensive study that we did for all the employees. And we would like to go ahead and get that instituted.
Okay, so this is to give the recommended increase to anybody that's not covered by a bargaining agreement, the administration, the staff, the managers and stuff like that.
Yeah,
okay.
It's the comprehensive study, the same terms that we did with the police department. Anyone
Council?
above the minimum would get the 3%
Okay.
added to their wages, and everybody else would get adjusted accordingly to the study.
Okay. Questions, discussion?
I think that was a tabled item, and we probably need to bring it off the table before we can do with it. Is that not correct?
That's correct. It was tabled. It needs to be, someone needs to bring it off the table, and subsequently, it's got to be seconded, and it's got to be voted by the majority.
Okay. Council, what's your pleasure on the table item?
I'll move that we remove the item from the table and discuss it.
Second, that item? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, so that wins. The item is off the table. Who would like to, discussion or motion?
Well, I'm looking through this, and we had agreed to table it, and I didn't want to go through the exempt employees until all the employees were handled in the beginning. And then on this list, I don't think the charter officers should be part of this discussion.
So what would you recommend?
Because in the charter officers, as far as, their raises, of course, in their contracts, it said about they're entitled to whatever the managerial type employees are afforded the same. And then I'm looking through the things, and I don't understand why everybody's not at 3%. I understand some of the employees are a little bit higher, but I just don't understand. And again, The city clerk, the city attorney, and the city manager are contractual employees. If they're upset with their pay, they gotta have a contract with us, and they can address it that way. So I don't think they should be part. I think the exempt employees, but I'm really not comfortable taking care of these exempt employees until after the city employees, that union is done. Because, I mean, I know the city attorney has some matters that he's gonna bring up later, as far as, what he has going on. I think it's an opportunity, too, to look at all the charter officers' contracts. Make sure they're all kind of in alignment. Because I have concerns about some are getting and others aren't getting. And I would like that to be addressed and tightened up, because I think I have some major concerns.
Okay.
I personally, with the employees that are on there, part of them are part of the police department. The rest of them are our managerial staff for the most part throughout the city. They're not affected by the bargaining agreements. They are only affected by the pay study, the comprehensive study that we paid money to look at, and it's what we're implementing for the police department. And we'll see what happens with the employees once they're done with their negotiations. As far as these, I see no reason to wait on any of the existing employees that are on this list. There's no point in waiting. It's just holding it off. It's something that once again, and they're not part of a bargaining agreement, so we either agree to it or don't agree to it. Nothing's going to change. As far as the charter employees, at this point, I don't necessarily agree that it's renegotiating their contracts by adjusting their salaries to the study wages. If that's something somebody else thinks, I guess somebody should make a motion to go different. I guess we can talk about it, but I'm okay with moving forward with this as it sits right now, and then we deal with the employees union as we finish their negotiations. Councilmember Dixon, do you have anything you want to add?
I see both sides, and I'm kind of torn myself. The city overall is a team, and I understand that. So in one way, I feel like everyone should get their raises at the same time, but then I also understand, the holdup are the people who have their bargaining agreement to contend to, and that shouldn't hold up everybody else. So I'm kind of torn on the subject, to be honest.
Okay.
Well, I was the one who I think made the motion to table it the last time. So basically because of the concerns that Councilmember McPartland raised about the all the bargaining unit. How close are we? I know you can't give away anything, but what do you feel about how close we are on the other bargaining unit?
I wish I could give you a pulse on that. They've put some pretty significant demands in this one compared to what they had already tentatively agreed on with the other union. So we have a meeting with them on the 31st, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay. I personally don't have an issue with Councilmember McPartland's discussion about redoing the contracts for the charter officers. I think it's not invalid to do something like that every 3 to 5 years, to at least review them and make a determination as to whether there's something in those contracts that we might want to modify. And this is probably a really good time to think about that, because just like he inferred, and anybody who's seen the agenda knows, our city attorney's leaving, and we're going to be forced to do a contract with a new city attorney at some point in time. So it might be an appropriate time for us to rethink through what we want that contract to look like as we get into the hiring process. So, I mean, I don't have any issue with that, with redoing those.
Okay. We should be taking public input on this item. Anybody from the public like to comment on item A about the wage increases for the exempt employees and the contract charter employees? Okay. Anybody on Zoom?
No input on Zoom.
Okay. So, council, I guess I will say, what's your pleasure? Does somebody have a motion?
I mean, if you want to move forward, I'll move forward with the exempt employees less the charter officers. Because I think they can wait until after negotiations are done with everybody.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Dixon, did you say something?
I seconded that.
You seconded his motion, okay?
Is your intention to tie the charter officers to a revision of their contracts, or to basically tie the charter officers' implementation of this increase on this spreadsheet to the completion of the final union negotiation?
Mine would be with the final of the union negotiations, as well as, and I think they're entitled, because it looks like the majority on this list is 3%. I have no problem with 3% according to the contract. You know, and because there are some items that came to my attention, and, you know, just so you know, I'm the one who made the public records request, and I looked into that, and I'm very concerned about some of the stuff that's in there. And I don't know if you recall, when the city attorney, he was going to have something redone, and he wanted a vehicle, and it was a big to-do, and that's what it's surrounding, is the vehicle. And I think it's a benefit that nobody's taken into account, because there was an addendum done to the contract, and I didn't realize what it became. And if you go through the records that were requested, you can figure it out on your own. I don't want to discuss it at this time.
Okay. There's what, 3? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4, basically 5 people over 3%, I think, on this list.
Yeah. I think my opinion on this is, I don't have a problem holding the charter employees until the end of the negotiations. You know, it might even be good form for the city manager not to get his raise until the rest of the employees all get theirs. It shows a little sensibility to the world. As far as renegotiating their contracts, I don't know if that, we can discuss that, but I don't know if that's necessarily part of this discussion item as it is, unless we want to bring it up to discuss as an item itself.
That should be actually added to the agenda.
I believe
as a separate, I think as a separate item.
I do agree. I think the item is based on, this agenda item was not related to their charter officer contracts. This item is related to whether we accept the exempt personnel all at this time. So I would not be for putting their contract negotiations as part of this. I think that's something we should agree to add to the next agenda. And there should be a timeline. I totally agree with Councilmember Dodd that contracts should be renewed every 3 years. We should sit down and have a discussion of goals and where you want to go and what you're happy with and what you're not happy with. That's something that has to happen. That should happen with any employees, especially a leader of a city like ours. So that's just my thoughts. So we have a motion and a second.
Let me make sure I understand again. Basically, your motion is that you remove the charter officers from this list and then approve the increases for everybody else.
Correct.
Okay.
And again, just to clarify also, is that the charter officers, I mean, even on this agenda transmittal, Mr. Anand signed off and he said, I'm not an exempt. And they're not exempt employees. Their contracts are tied into what equivalent managerial employees can get, and they can get whatever the others are get, and it could be increased at the discretion of the council.
So the intent would be to revisit this issue once the other union contracts are agreed to.
Correct, with the charter
But the
officers.
increase that we revisit for the charter officer would still be effective, what, October 1st? That's what the list of this list is. Would still be effective October 1st. So we wouldn't change any of that as part of your motion.
Correct. And then, you know, just another caveat, just to know, is if that contracts are not done, I would like to make Mr. Anand whole. You know, like if he leaves, he's not here, tough, Manny, you don't get it. I would like to make sure, because I don't want Sebastian to have the reputation that this guy left and they didn't give him what he was entitled to.
Okay, so, yeah, we can deal with that as a separate issue as part of his.
Okay. So if you could just, do you understand the motion? Okay. Do you want to reread the motion just so we all understand what we're?
A motion by Councilmember McPartlin to remove the charter officers from the proposed increases on the chart.
Pending completion of negotiations, correct? Of employees' negotiations. Okay, make sure that's in there. I think that's important. Okay. Do you want to take a roll call?
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Mr. Vice Mayor, just for me to be clear on the other issue, are you saying that during the next agenda, you want to bring back the contracts, or you want to wait till we've done negotiation with the union and then bring back the charter officers' contracts?
No.
I think we need an agenda item for the council to discuss our position on renegotiating the contracts. Okay. And then the council would have to vote then on whether we want to do that. We have a procedure in place to do that. It's actually the mayor's position to negotiate contracts, and I would hate for us to discuss it without him being here.
Agreed.
Yeah, so.
Okay. So that item is concluded. New business. Approve the hiring of an outside consultant for the city attorney recruitment process. Mr. Nong.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just need some clarification. As you guys know, I mean, without going into details of other than me sharing with all you guys where potentially I'll be going, the bottom line is that last Tuesday I was appointed by majority of a board to go to that city, and I'm going to be entering into negotiations this week. Hopefully enter into a contract, and it goes before that board second week of February. If that happens, then technically then be the city attorney for a different city. I'm going to negotiate with them an exit, meaning I want to transition here with you guys probably sometime in March, assuming that happens. So in lieu of that, the reason why I put this on the agenda is I want clear that we can move quickly. What is the pleasure of the council? Last time when I got hired, you went with an outside headhunter, and I believe it was Colin Basinger. I did reach out to Mr. Basinger and his company. The price now, that's why I put it there, I think it was $34,500. He told me today that if you do go with him, look on a time frame of like 90 days from the point they start till you have an attorney that you guys negotiate and feel comfortable with. In addition to that, after that 90 days, take into account you got a negotiated contract and potential notice. So you might add another 30 days to that. So what the direction I want is, do you want to handle it that way, go outside to hire someone? I think it might give you, I recommend that because it might give you a better pool. It is pretty scarce to get both city attorneys and city managers nowadays because everyone's trying to hire those. Or do you want to do it in-house, which I don't recommend, but you know, I can work with HR and try to get the information out through listserv and the Florida bar, which will be limiting our pool. So that's the question I have for the council. What direction, assuming I do negotiate and ratify, what direction you want me to take?
Can he do it quicker than 90 days? Is 90 days, he does this type of recruiting all the time. Maybe because basically what it amounts to is if we sign a contract with him in a week and a half or 2 weeks, then we're going to be without an attorney for 3 months.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we'll have to find a temporary attorney, an interim attorney. It's hard to find attorneys with municipal city experience.
Yeah. This is part of my exit and transition with you guys because I love City of Sebastian, and I will be negotiating that. So probably it's going to be, I know they want me to start as soon as possible, but probably we're looking at sometime in March. And I can probably, if you guys still need me, I can probably continue doing some kind of service, but it won't be as city attorney because I can't hold two public offices at one time.
Right.
So if you need me, I can attempt to continue, and I did talk to that mayor, and I think they're very susceptible because they don't want me to exit wrong either. So we can try to do that, or alternatively, I can try to find you someone else that might fit that bill and can assist you. I'm not going to abandon you guys. I just want to make sure that you guys transition and hire an attorney to replace me. And one more thing I wanted to add is, do you want attorneys per se, or are you also interested in law firms? and that's up to you guys. I know what the position was last time.
I think the one thing that the last 4 years has convinced me of, we need an attorney in-house.
Agreed.
Who can deal with this stuff. I mean, so I'm just concerned about the time frame.
Mr. McPartland?
Well, yeah, the time frame, of course, and then this is a little different than before, because we had part-time attorney before Mr. Anon, is maybe there is somebody who would be willing to come in on a part-time basis after he leaves, because he's got to give his date, and he's got to go, and like he said, he can't hold 2 charter positions at the same time. Maybe there's somebody who could come in on a part-time basis. I think was it before Mr. Stokes, we had somebody who was interim? Well, we had to because Mr. Ginsburg passed away. Maybe they're a possibility. Maybe one of the other municipal attorneys in an area might be on a part-time, fill-in to review document kind of basis.
If I can, even an interim city attorney, I think it's still going to require this board to appoint, because they will be doing pretty much what a charter officer does. So even on an interim basis, it still will require you, the board, to appoint them to be your charter officer, even as an interim base.
Who would be the most appropriate person to try to find a part-time interim city attorney? Would that be the HR department? Would that be the city manager? Would that be you? I mean, what's the best approach for trying to find someone either locally or hopefully locally that can do that and interview them? And
I mean, I could start. I haven't even been officially ratified yet, but what I could do is reach out to, my, the listserv and talk to the attorneys that I know in the area and see if they have a candidate or a couple, and bring it back to the board next time we meet in February, that you guys can say, look, this is from an interim basis, and hopefully you guys are satisfied with the qualification. I did try to reach out, and Paul, city manager, reached out to some individuals, but they already have jobs, and unfortunately or fortunately. And, but I can try to do that and bring you guys some names, and even reach out to you guys during the week if I have some suggestions, and talk to you guys on one-on-ones. Because I still believe it's going to require a board to appoint that person, even on an interim basis, because you're giving them the charter officer position.
My opinion is we need to move quickly on this to give movement so we can get this started. I think it's a great time with the number of people moving to Florida that we possibly might be able to get a city attorney from another state or county or city somewhere else. So I think it's probably a good time to do that, but I think a headhunter should probably handle that because they'll have a wider breadth of, wider reach than just us. Now, if there's people that you think should apply, I have no problem you giving them their name and saying, all right, here's the organization, the person handling our search, and that's who you need to talk to get in on it.
What I can do, Mr. Mayor, is I already spoke with the HR. We already have a template, and starting probably next week, I can put out the Florida bar and the listserv and put out to the people that I know to see if we can, I can apply to the position, and B, if they're interested on an interim basis, bring that up to the council as well. And I can do that one-on-ones or in February. But the reason why I was suggesting Mr. Mazinger is because he's done it before with you guys. He's got the template of everything that he usually does, so he thinks he can speed it up at least 2 or 3 weeks. Okay. Is what he was telling me today. So, and I believe you said you want attorneys, not law firms, correct?
yeah, I'll make a motion that we retain Mr. Basinger's firm to do a search for a city attorney, and that we like that search limited to permanent city attorneys and not to law firms that would come in.
I second that motion. Councilmember Dixon, do you have anything you want to bring up, add, discuss?
No, I agree. This is definitely a job for a headhunter.
All right. I guess we can just call this one. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Actually, it's money.
Oh, is it money? It is money,
contract
so
for money.
roll call.
Okay.
Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
And Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so we'll move forward on that. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any matters you want to bring up?
Just 2 quick issues. One was already mentioned. We're going back to negotiation with the general employees and supervisors at the end of this month, and I hope finalizing that contract, if we can have several meetings, hopefully sooner in timeframes. And the other issue I want to mention is an update on the city charter pamphlets that we finally got the revisions. It's been approved, and I believe we're going to be placing the order in, what, 2 weeks maybe?
So I proofread them, and they're going to print right now.
Okay, so I anticipate within a couple of weeks, we'll have those pamphlets again that I can share with you guys about the amendment. So other than that, unless you got any questions, I got nothing further.
No, thank you. Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Mr. Vice Mayor, after the special meeting that we had last week, I had reached out to D.R. Horton. I met with them on Tuesday. We've thrown some ideas out. We haven't finalized anything, so I don't have anything concrete to bring to you tonight. But they are amenable to trying to look at some options with us and negotiate some different options. So we'll bring that back to you as soon as I have some firm ideas. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Ms. City Clerk? Nothing? All right. Councilmember Dixon?
Yes. Last weekend, I attended the Institute for Elected Municipal Officials, fondly shortened to EMO, I've learned. I brought back a deeper understanding of the workings of city government, and I made some relationships with other newly elected officials. Like, there was even one 18-year-old who'd been elected mayor in his town. And I also brought back a nasty cold. This is why I'm not there tonight. So I'm thankful for the city's Zoom capabilities so that I didn't have to share my germs with all of you, as I knew it would be a full room tonight. So sorry I couldn't be up on the dais with all of you, but I'm here at home. That's it.
Councilmember Dodd?
Well, I just want to let Councilmember Dixon know that anytime you go to a Florida League of Cities meeting, you're going to come back sick. I always do. I'm not sure whether that's part of their offerings or what, but two things. I want to say, I know we're not talking about annexation anymore. I just want to say that I want to congratulate the city staff, the city manager, city attorney, the growth management department. Believe me, if nothing more than just putting up with me in this process, they've won gold stars, because I've spent many hours in conversations with them about this. I think they've done a bang-up job in putting this thing together. I know there's a lot of unanswered questions, but I'm not so sure we'll ever answer some of those questions when it comes down to it. And I want one more thing. We do these grants for business, like the sign and facade grant, and sometimes I just take those for granted, with the word grant. Well, I drove by the shopping center, the center on US 1 that contains, I can't remember the name of it now. Excuse me?
The district.
Mm-hmm.
The district?
Yeah, the district. And they presented us a very nice picture of what they plan on doing. And for what the part that they've got finished, they lived up to what they presented to the city. It's just, it's nice to see that when we provided a grant to somebody, they actually did, it turns out the way it looked like on paper. So I want to congratulate them for the work that they've done in that. They changed the name from something else to the district, I believe, didn't they?
Yeah, from the village to
the village to the district. Okay, so that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes, I concur with Mr. Dodd. I mean, they did a great job with the agreement so far. Hopefully it gets signed off and we'll move ahead. Just to reiterate, in your earlier you had mentioned the Sebastian Citizens Academy that started. Very good group. It has everybody that they go through and they teach. I guess I'm considered in the and more section, because I tell you about what I do, what I get involved in, and where I'm looking for help, but you got to come to see it, so you got to sign up, because I'm not going to tell you what that's about. And then, I don't know if something happened earlier when there was more people here in the chamber. I was having a problem with the audio, and it's much better now. I don't know if something changed, but earlier I was having difficulty during the earlier meeting, so if that's something we could look into.
Yeah.
And that's all I have. Mr.
Awesome.
Nunn, good job tonight.
Thank you. It's always interesting doing your first one. I'm sure you both know the experience, and it's been enjoyable. Been a fun meeting. I'm very excited to say thank you to our staff for a wonderful annexation agreement. I know that there's some items that we'd like to see. We've taken notes on that maybe can be adjusted, maybe not, we'll see. I know that staff has worked very hard with Mr. Bass as well, and it hasn't been a simple experience. It's been very, very convoluted and a lot of work, and thank you for all of that work. Thank you to all the staff. We do a wonderful job every day. Last thing I'd like to say is, please slow down and get off your phones. There's a couple bad accidents here recently, like that one up on US 1 with the wrecker with a car on the back that went through 2 cement telephone poles, and it looked like the thing exploded, and thank God nobody got killed, but please pay attention on the roads. Everything's not a racetrack. And if nobody else has anything for the good of the order, call the meeting. Thank you.